Well, good morning, Will County, and welcome to the Life with Vitality Show. I'm your host, Davis Jaspers, the founder of the Vital Life program, and your local person that wants you to live a vital life. As Scott mentioned earlier, appreciate that introduction, Scott. So I had such a great response from last week's show about overcoming self-sabotage with not only with your diet, but honestly with life. And we tend to have this propensity where, there's a part of us that wants to be something, but then there's a part of us that sabotages the something we want to be. And typically the something we want to be is a better version of ourselves, but there's something that continually happens to us where we don't become the person we want to be. And, if we don't change, I can tell you how the next 5 years of life is going to be. It's going to look a lot like the previous 5 years of your life. And so overcoming self-sabotage is it's something that is so important, not only when we're talking about our health and our weight and our diet plan, but it is a life principle. And it is something that I actually took some time this week, and I developed a worksheet for everybody, and I'm giving out this worksheet for free. So the first thing that I want you to do, if you're listening to the Life with Vitality show right now and you're not driving your car, is I want you to go to our website, vitallifeweightloss.com. So just take a minute, go to vitallifeweightloss.com, and you'll see at the very top there's a green banner that says Self-Sabotage Worksheet. I wanted to make it really easy and really clear so everybody would not have a problem finding it. But vitallifeweightloss.com, right there, there is at the very top, it says the Life with Vitality Show download PDF. All right, so right underneath our logo, big green banner, the Life with Vitality Show download PDF. Download that because we are going to be going over that throughout the show today. So download that. You're going to find this extremely helpful and very, very practical. And if you'll do this, if you'll do the steps, you will be able to overcome self-sabotage. If you don't do the steps, I don't know if you will or not. But again, I want you to consider, a lot of times when you listen to something, you're listening in a passive sense. In other words, you may be learning something, you may be, growing a little bit by listening to something, but listening to something is different than action from what you're listening to. And so, whether we're listening to things about our finances, or whether we're listening to things about our health and our weight, or whether we're listening to whatever we might be listening to and we think, wow, that was really good, I would like to start to practice that, and then life happens and we go throughout our day and we forget some of the things that we learned. So I don't want that to be you today. By the way, if you're joining on our Facebook page, make sure you say hi, put a hashtag #1 if you're listening to this live. If you listen to this later, hashtag #2, and you as well go on to our website, vitallifeweightloss.com, download that PDF. We spent a lot of time putting this PDF together this week because I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's, again, not just a weight struggle or a diet struggle, but it is a life struggle. So hopefully you've had a chance to visit vitallifeweightloss.com, you download the PDF, you can follow along. All right. Hopefully you've got the PDF downloaded. If you're listening on my Facebook page, let me know if you've downloaded the PDF successfully. All right. So there's you just click the form at the very top of the page, or if you're having trouble finding it, let me know because I really want you guys to be able to follow along. Okay. So click the link, you'll get the PDF, and let's follow along and let's do this. All right. So the first thing, when we look at self-sabotage, what tends to happen is we view it as this mountain. And honestly, when we look at change in general for our life, when we're trying to change something that we don't like about ourselves, it seems like this huge, insurmountable obstacle. And like when we're looking at healthy and trying to get off some medications, when we're looking at trying to change our diet to eat healthy and to learn how to cook, all of those things can seem very daunting. Nobody likes change. In fact, when Facebook or Instagram, when they do an update, or maybe you've experienced this as well, when your computer does an update and the buttons that you're used to clicking have changed, isn't that frustrating? We don't like change, but change is necessary for growth. And in fact, change causes us pain, and growth as well causes us pain. So it's important that we choose to experience some of these pains, because that is how we grow. So I want you to start by thinking, if you know that you're a person who is a self-saboteur, or you self-sabotage yourself. If you're that person, I want you just to think about what is the biggest issue that you want to change, because by the end of this show, you're going to have all of the tools to go and change that. Okay, so hopefully you guys have had a chance to download the PDF. Again, if you're joining on Facebook, go to vitallifeweightloss.com. At the very top, there's a green bar that says Life with Vitality Radio Show PDF. Click on that. You're going to download that so that way you can follow along with what I'm talking about. It's great to see on our Facebook page Lorraine listening in, and Linda, good morning, both of you guys. Again, if you're joining on the Facebook page, make sure you say hi. Let me know where you're listening in from. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take what feels like a mountain. We're going to take this self-sabotaging, reoccurring problem that we have that feels so huge, and we're going to break it down. In fact, a lot of times when I'm coaching somebody who's struggling with this, it's like, man, I always self-sabotage. Well, do you always self-sabotage? Let me first ask you that question. Do you always self-sabotage? Or maybe there's just certain times that you find yourself self-sabotaging. So what I want you to do, take whatever issue you want to work on. Maybe it's your finances, and man, you do great throughout the week, but then the weekend comes and you end up going out with your friends with COVID, but maybe you go out with your friends, have a few drinks, go out to eat, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I really wanted to save money this week so I could pay off some debt, and I just spent $100 tonight eating out and drinking. Maybe your self-sabotage is exercising. Maybe you don't need to lose weight, but man, you want to be more active. And you have all these plans. You get that gym membership, you pay that personal trainer, and you do great throughout the week, but then on the weekend, you're not active. You're not exercising. So maybe it's the exercising side. Perhaps it is, something you want to do with your children. Maybe you want to be more involved in their life. Maybe you want to be teaching them more things and setting aside time to spend with them. But then life happens and you look at the week, and the week is gone and the month is gone. And you're like, man, I wanted to spend, every Saturday morning with my kids, and I just didn't do it. I didn't take that purposeful time and set it aside. Maybe you're a self-saboteur with your calendar. And just, you waking up in the morning and getting going and staying on top of your day is something that you really struggle with. And you find yourself self-sabotaging your own progress. Lori is listening in all the way from New York, Long Island, New York. Great to have you, Lorraine, on the Life with Vitality show. Again, download the PDF, vitallifeweightloss.com. And follow along here. So what we're going to do, you have your issue, whatever you want to work on. I know we are a weight loss and wellness company, so a lot of people, it will be your diet. And I know that if you have experienced yo-yoing on your diet, you know exactly what it feels like. Maybe you do great throughout the week, and then the weekend comes, and then you just eat. Or maybe you do really good throughout the day, and then all of a sudden you get home and you start eating, and that just snowballs, and that turns into a binge fest, and you just eat and eat and eat, and then you feel bad, and so to feel better, you eat some more, and it's this roller coaster, and you can't seem to get victory in that area. This PDF and this show is definitely for you. So we're going to start, if you have the PDF, you're going to start by, whatever your topic is, you're going to start by listing out your weekly struggles. Like, where do you struggle? Because we think we struggle all of the time. But what you're going to find, I think there's about 10 lines on there. I just want you to list them out. So maybe your weekly struggle is, man, I struggle when I get home from work. I don't really struggle throughout the day, but man, when I get home from work, that's when I want to eat the foods that aren't good for me. That's when I want to just sit down and do nothing when I want to clean my house and I want to be more productive, okay? So whatever your issue is, and I'm going to, for the sake of making this simple, I'm going to just deal with our diet and weight loss. So we're going to take our weekly struggles and we're going to list them out. So maybe our weekly struggles could look like this. Man, it's when I come home, or, it's when there's a birthday party at work and they bring donuts, or there's cake. I really struggle with, I have kids at home, and I really struggle with the foods that I give that my kids, maybe it's like animal crackers or Cheez-Its, or I don't know what you're giving your children, but maybe that's the temptation where you're trying to stick really closely to a diet plan and trying to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, but man, you find yourself sabotaging yourself when you want to eat the foods that you're giving your kids. So what I want you to do is I want you to list out all of those issues. Okay, again, we're only taking one area of self-sabotage, and we're going to be talking today about diet, and then you're going to list out all of the areas. Maybe when you get home you're eating unhealthy food, even though you're trying to clean things up, maybe they're not, and so there's a moment in time when you come home and you see someone eating something. Maybe that is one of your weekly struggles. So list out all the weekly struggles. And what you're going to find as you go through this exercise, what you're going to find is it's not as much as you think. You have weekly struggles, but you're going to find that, the average person, 5 and 10 times throughout the week where or where they have a tendency to self-sabotage. And if you're struggling with where those areas are, ask yourself or play back in your mind, when was the last time you self-sabotaged? And what was the events that led up to that? Okay, so think through that. And then if you're on our Facebook page and you have some things that you would like to share where you know that you are a self-saboteur, go ahead and list those out. That's going to help people's brains get moving. That's going to help get our creative, thoughtful juices going. So that's the first thing. So we're going hopefully you've had a chance to download the PDF. If you can't do this right now, you've at least downloaded the PDF, and then you're going to listen to this show later so that way you can go through it, because it's important to go through this while I'm talking, all right? So the next thing you're going to do on the next page of this worksheet is you're going to list by category. You're going to group by category all of the different groupings. So in other words, let's say you have kids, you have your spouse, and you have your mother or father-in-law that lives at home. And those tend to be triggers for you for self-sabotaging. All right, so you're going to group that into family. So page 2 is you're going to take your list and you're going to break that down into groups. So there's little boxes on the page. And what those little boxes are for is they're for you to group them. So you have, like, for instance, you have work triggers. You have family triggers. Maybe you have relationship triggers, like outside relationships, maybe extended family. So I want you to try to categorize that list that you created into groups. And what you're going to find is that the groups really help make things manageable. Because if I take, I struggle with the food that I feed my kids, it makes me want to eat that food. I struggle with my spouse eating unhealthy food. I struggle with coming home from work and just not having the desire to cook. All of those could be grouped into one thing, and that could be, home. So we have all of these problems, but we could really boil them down into home. So what we need to do is then just create strategies for home. Now I've taken this massive mountain that feels like I'll never be able to overcome my tendencies to self-sabotage, and I've broken it down into a couple boxes that make things really simple. And when I look at these couple boxes, it allows me to relax and say, I can do this. And if you're listening, driving or sitting at your computer or whatever you're doing right now, maybe I just want you to, out loud, if there's people around you, it's okay. Just say, I can do this. All right? Just say it. I can do this. By you speaking that you can do that and you saying that, it's actually putting out there into existence your ability to actually do something. And this isn't positive thinking. This is nothing like that. The reality that we have is created through the words we speak. So when we start saying what we can do it. I love Henry Ford's quote, whether you say you can or you say you can't, you're right. And if you're sitting there right now and you're like, I'm not going to say that, you're one of those people that aren't going to do it. You're one of those people that aren't going to make it. It looks like Lori is also watching on our Facebook page. Great to have you, Lori. Thanks for saying hi. Again, if you're on our Facebook page, download the PDF, vitalifeweightloss.com. There's a big green bar at the top that says Life with Vitality Radio Show PDF, and you're going through this list with me. We are doing this exercise together because I want you to create for yourself a new future. And a happy, successful, fulfilled future is not a future that's full of self-sabotage. All right, so once you have everything grouped into categories, the next sheet is we're going to list out from what we've already created. Okay, we're going to list out what is things, or what are, I should say, things that we can control, and what are things that we can't control. So there's a big circle in the middle, and the circle are the things that you can control. So let me just give you an example. If you're a mom who's at home, and maybe your struggle is, one of the struggles that you listed as a trigger is the foods that you feed your kids. They're things that you can't have on your diet. Now, I want you to consider, maybe those foods are not things that should be in your kids' diet or in their regular diet. If you're giving them highly processed foods every day, for you are, in essence, addicting them to a lifestyle that will eventually give them the same weight problems that you may have. So if you want something different for your kids, start by you yourself being different. So when we think about the things that we can control, sometimes we don't have an accurate viewpoint on that. Sometimes we think, well, I have to feed my kids that. Do you really have to feed your kids that? Or is there another alternative? What did they feed kids before they had, all of this highly processed food? Did kids just starve to death? No. So there are other possibilities. Now, they may be harder, but there is something that you could do. And it's actually a huge win-win, because if you're eating healthy food and you're teaching your kids to eat healthy food at the same time, that's a huge win. So let's not say that feeding our kids food is outside of our control. You control what your kids eat. That's inside your control. Okay? So let's list out the things that you cannot control. So for instance, you cannot control when there's a birthday party and they're giving out donuts at work. That is something that you cannot control. But you can control what foods come into your house in most instances. You can control what foods you're feeding your children. You can control what you do, what actions you take. Maybe one of the triggers that you listed was watching TV at night, and you see these commercials for all this delicious food, and it makes you want to eat food. Or maybe there's, you're watching a movie and the actor or actresses or whatever are drinking alcohol, and that makes you want to drink alcohol. Trigger for you, and you can control that by it's great to have Sherry listening in on our Facebook page. Again, we are going through a worksheet. It is going to be highly helpful for anyone who struggles with self-sabotage. And if we're all honest, we all do at some points in time in our life. So you can download the PDF at vitalifeweightloss.com. There's a big green banner at the top that says Life with Vitality Radio Show PDF. So once we've listed out the things that we can control and the things that we can't control, I want you to just take a double look at the things that you listed that you cannot control. And I want you to ask yourself, is there anything I could do to control those things? All right, because if you can move, the more you can move inside the circle, the easier it's going to be for you. All right, so once we finish that, the next page is to create strategies to change what you can control. So for instance, some of the examples I've given, you can control what you feed your children. So one strategy, if a trigger is the foods that you're feeding your kids, you tend to eat them as well. The strategy around that is I'm going to feed my kids healthy food now. Another strategy might be I'm not going to watch TV because that's a trigger for me. And when I watch TV, I have the tendency to eat unhealthy food, and I do it unconsciously. It's just something I'm doing. All right, so we're going to take the things that we can control, create some strategies, and commit to them. Hey, I'm not going to watch TV at night, at least not until I reach my goal weight, or not until I have victory in this area, not until it's that temptation that I can't control. The strategies that we're going to create, that's what this page, create the strategies for the things that we can control. Now here's the hard part. If there is a hard part, which again, the hard part is not filling out this form. The hard part is actually doing the work, getting on the field and playing the game. And it's going to be hard. And it should be hard, because if it was easy, it wouldn't be a struggle, and you wouldn't learn from it, and you wouldn't grow from it. All right, so the next page is responsible skills. And for the things that we can't control, we are going to learn how to be responsible for the things that we can't control. And the things that we can't control, let's say that you can't control, we'll go with the birthday party at the office. You can't control if people are going to bring in donuts to give away for somebody's birthday party. You can't control that, but you can be responsible for that. Responsible, and I'd like to break that word up, is response-able. So in other words, it's the ability to respond. Response-able. Now, we can't control the donuts coming into work. However, we can have the ability to respond to that external stimulus. Something we can't control is that external stimulus, but we have the ability to choose our response. And so therefore, we now become responsible for everything in our lives. And the true test of a powerful, strong, successful person is that ability to say, I am responsible for my life. And I want you to understand this, because if you don't get this, you're not going to get it. People who are responsible for their life are the ones that are able to change their life. People who are not responsible for their life, it's that victim. Oh, woe is me, I can never do this. It's the government. It's the government, it's the economics, it's the weather, it's the blah, blah, blah. There's all of these come up with, rather than say, no, I am responsible for everything that happens to my life. In other words, I have the innate ability to respond to whatever happens. That, my friends, is true freedom. Something that no one can ever take. The ability to respond to your circumstances. So when we look at all of the things that are completely outside of our control, we need to choose how we're going to respond to them. So what you're going to do here is you're going to list out some skills that you need to develop. So for instance, let's just go back to the donuts at work. You have the ability to respond to those. How are you going to do it? Maybe you need to tell someone, maybe you need to tell someone, hey, this is a struggle for me. Can you keep me accountable? This is called a commitment device. Can you keep me accountable so that way I don't take any donuts? I'm on this diet. I'm trying to clean up my health, and I can't eat donuts. Maybe that would be a great strategy. Maybe another strategy is that, man, you are on top of knowing when people's birthdays are. And so you come into work extra guarded. So that way you already have your strategy picked out. Maybe you bring healthier foods. Maybe you bring an apple or maybe some berries so you can still enjoy a nice sweet treat without sabotaging your diet. Maybe you struggle on the weekends and you struggle going out with friends. Well, if you're trying to really develop the healthy habits, maybe you'd make a commitment that you're not going to go out 4 weeks with your friends, because that's a time when you self-sabotage. So that way you're creating something around that. You're creating a strategy around that. Maybe your spouse refuses to join you on your diet, and they're stopping through the drive-thru on the way home, and they're bringing home this food, and they're like, hey, I brought you a burger. All right, so develop a skill being able to respond to that. So maybe it's just a conversation with your spouse. Hey, look, it's really hard for me when you eat unhealthy food in front of me, and I'm trying so hard to do the right thing so I can be healthy. Can you help me by eating that at the restaurant or in the car before you come in the house so it's not a temptation for me? Well, now you have the ability to respond to that external stimuli that you can't control. All right, and then the last page on this worksheet. So once we've developed our strategies for the things that we can control, the things that we can't control, and we have become responsible, or the ability to respond to everything that happens to us, the last thing that we need to do to drive this point home and to keep it going into the future is ask ourselves better questions. So our mind is constantly going, and we're constantly asking ourselves questions. Why did that her? Why did she do this? Or him? Why did he do this? Oh, look at that. They just how can they afford that new car? Or when we're asking personal questions about ourselves, it's questions like, why do I always self-sabotage on my diet? Why is this such a struggle for me? How can that person be better and I struggle? Why is this such an issue? How come this person can go for a walk and I don't have the motivation? Why am I on this medication? Why? We ask ourselves all these questions. And what I want you to do is I want you to list out, and this may take some time, I want you to list out some of the questions that you find yourself asking yourself. And specifically, I want you to figure out what are some of the negative questions that you find yourself asking. Like, why do I always yo-yo on a diet? Why can't I get this right? What your mind does is your psychology immediately floods your mind, reinforcing that question. Why do I always self-sabotage? Well, it's because you're a loser, because you've always self-sabotaged, so therefore you can never change. And these are the little thoughts that just come flooding into your mind, and they make it feel like it's impossible to change. The next line is where you ask yourself a better question. So rather than, why do I always self-sabotage on my diet? Ask yourself this question: what can I do now to ensure that I don't sabotage myself? You've been listening to the Life with Vitality show. I'm your host, Davis Jaspers, reminding you that today is the perfect day to live a vital life. And for all of you on our Facebook page, let's finish this thought. You have your current questions. And when we list out our current questions, I want you to list out a better question right across from the current question. Typically, the current questions we're asking ourselves are negative ones. We don't need to change the positive ones. We don't need to change the questions like, why am I so awesome? Or why do I feel so great in the morning? Okay, those are great questions. All right, but what we want to do is list out some of those negative current questions that we have. And then on the opposite side, we're going to list out better questions. So when we're looking at self-sabotage, why do I always fail on my diet? Why can I only lose 20 pounds and no more? Why can I never get my body composition analysis in the green? Why is my metabolic age so high, and why does it never change? Rather than asking yourself that question, because when you ask yourself a negative question, you're going to get negative answers. Ask yourself, what can I do right now to not yo-yo on my diet this time? And immediately your brain starts putting some stuff together. Immediately your brain says, well, I could go for a walk. I could get rid of the unhealthy food in my house. So asking ourselves better questions is going to lead to a better life. So as we're looking at, going through this PDF and going through this self-sabotage worksheet, if we're going to keep the results that we want, we have to change the way we ask ourselves questions. And as soon as we find ourselves asking ourselves questions like, why does this always happen to me? Stuff like that. Rather than those questions, it could be, what can I do right now to change the way I am? What can I do right now to not yo-yo on my diet this time? What can I do right now to not be tempted to eat that donut at work? Whatever it is, make it a positive question and make it a question that's in the present. Because when we make a question that's in the present, it produces action. What can I do right now? And I want you to use that phrase with your current questions and your new questions or your better questions. Make them things that you can do right now. So what can I do right now? Because that creates action, and whatever is coming to your mind, do it. Don't wait. Waiting is the old you. Waiting is the question, why do I always procrastinate? Rather than, why do I always procrastinate? The new question you could ask yourself right now is, what action can I take right now to prove to myself that I no longer am a procrastinator? That would be a great question. Well, I hope that you found this helpful. If you're listening on our Facebook page right now, again, the PDF, you can listen to this again. This will be posted. This radio show will be posted on our page. It's on our support group as well. Make sure you download the PDF and go through it. That could be a great action, is when can I complete this worksheet and start taking that action? The sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to be able to change. And the sooner you change, the great thing is about change is it doesn't take a week to start feeling great about yourself. It just takes. You're going to find whatever actions that you're thinking about taking right now, if you'll just go out and do them, it's going to make you feel amazing. If you're gonna commit, here's what I want you to do. If you're gonna commit to taking the time to download the worksheet and fill it out, if that's you, if you're gonna do it, I want you to commitment device. You putting out there in the universe, I am going to do that in front of all of the people who are listening. I am saying I am going to do this. So if that's you, I want you to put a hashtag commit, and you're committing that you're going to download the PDF. You're going to and you're going to fill it out. Or if you don't need to listen to it again, you're going to fill it out because you understand the process of what we're going through. It's great to have Mark listening from Manhattan. So nice to see you today on the Life with Vitality show. And Carmen, good morning as well. So again, take the time, download the PDF, vitallifeweightloss.com, big green banner at the top, Life with Vitality radio show PDF. And I look forward to hearing about your results. My email is on that PDF. If you found it helpful, I would love to hear from you. Or if you didn't find it helpful, I would also love to hear from you. I would love to get some feedback from that. Thank you guys so much for joining. You have just listened to the Life with Vitality show. Your host, Davis Jaspers, is reminding you that today is the perfect day to live a vital life.